Well, hello and welcome. I am so delighted to have you here today. Super excited. Thank you for being here. If you're here, type in hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from as well. And I'm curious to hear from you. What is your favorite party drink or cocktail here? Today is a special edition. It's my 40th birthday tomorrow. So I decided to do something very special today where I've gathered a group of my friends, 9 of them, to come celebrate my birthday and to answer your questions and share some best and career and job search advice. Are you guys excited or what? I'm super pumped. I can't believe all of them said yes to be joining. So it's going to be a high vibe energy show today. So type in and say hello. Let us know where you're from. And what's your favorite party drink? I'll share with you mine. My favorite party drink is a nice mojito. I love it fruity, maybe with some blueberry or lychee or some mango there. So that's my favorite drink. So some housekeeping. Here's what to expect. Today's agenda. We will be covering the Great Resignation, the implications of that, what this means to you as a career changer or job seeker, some best career and job search advice, and we're going to talk about ways to thrive at work. Okay. The other thing is replay are available on my LinkedIn, Facebook, or you can catch it on my YouTube channel as well. I will be adding timestamps later on, along with all our guest speakers, links for you to get in touch with them or follow them as well. Okay, so are you guys excited? Let me see who's in the house here. We got lots of people from Brazil, Texas, Georgia, Cape Town, South Africa. Amazing, amazing. Welcome, welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start bringing on my guest speakers today because we have many of them, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you later on as well. So I'm going to start bringing them on. I encourage you to, let's welcome our speakers, show your appreciation, give some love as well, share your kind words and your support as we go through. Okay, so I'm going to start bringing them on. We have Jennifer Brick.
Hey.
We have Tiffany Uman as well.
Hello, hello.
Jordana Matsos.
Good morning.
Virginia Franco.
Hello.
Ricklin Woods and my friend Dr. John Tam. Welcome all. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. Let's do the wave. Oh my God, virtual hug as well. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get the party started. I want to first catch up with you all. It's been a while. Some of you have been on my show before. Some of you are new to my show. So my first question just to kick things off is I want to get to hear from you guys. What's your favorite party drink? Let's go quickly here. Tiffany.
Lychee martini for sure.
Ooh, I like that. Jennifer.
I'm traditional, just champagne.
Champagne. I like that. I had a bit of that yesterday. Ricklin.
Nice.
I love a good amaretto sour.
I love that too, amaretto. Ooh, Virginia.
I have recently discovered frosés. That's been my summer go-to drink.
Ooh, I like that. What about you, Jordana?
I am a non-alcoholic girl, so anything with tonic or spritzer or like a really fresh fruit juice, I love.
Ooh, I love that too, the tonic. What about you, John?
Just a good old Scotch single malt is good for me.
Nice, amazing. So I want to hear from you guys. What has 2021 taught you? And share with us a little bit about what's your area of expertise and who you serve. So why don't we start with John?
Yeah, so 2021 I think has been a year of adapting, of being on your feet and just pivoting and being ready to pivot in your career whenever you need to. And I think it's a year that everyone's been stretched in one way or another. And so what I do is I help people gain clarity in their career and find their purpose. And I think it's especially a pertinent time because everyone's just, the objective space that they get from the daily grind makes them wonder, like, hey, is this right for me? Or perhaps the nature of the work changed. And then they wonder, like, do I want to stick around? So 2021's definitely been a special year.
Thanks for sharing that. What about you, Jennifer?
Unmute myself here. So I do the main thing that I do is I help people get over their toxic jobs. So obviously over the last 18 months, there's been a lot of changes in terms of how we work. And I really think that what I've learned and what a ton of people have learned is, what environments we work well in, what works for us, what doesn't, and that we're really demanding a lot more from our careers. So kind of echoing a lot of what John just said. So the main thing that I actually do is help people escape from their toxic jobs. The main thing that I've actually learned this year is really to just like expect the unexpected and to start to learn how to proceed when you don't have any sort of sure footing, because none of us really have for the last year and a half.
Yeah, such a good point there. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Jordana?
Unmute too. Oh my goodness, what a year of transition. I think, for me, what I have learned is that it's okay to be vulnerable, vulnerable in your conversations, with other employees, with your boss, with coworkers. So my focus is, I am a sales focused recruitment agency and hiring practice that focuses on working with diverse candidates and putting them into purpose driven organizations. And so candidate experience is something that a lot of my clients have had to learn. What does that mean to them? Even, candidates going through the interview process, how have things changed in terms of, being transparent about your situation, your skills, being authentic as an employer and being authentic as a candidate. Gone are the days where we're going to stay at an organization for even 5, 10, 15 years in a row. And so the market needs to be able to respond. And I found that by being vulnerable with my candidates and my candidates being vulnerable with their employers or potential employers and those employers sharing in that, they've positioned themselves to be, ahead of the game in hiring in the marketplace.
Amazing. Thank you. And what about you, Virginia?
Gosh, I mean, echoing what I've been hearing from all of you, I'd say 2020 and 2021 have taught us that we are super resilient, adaptable, and that we can do things that we never thought possible. And that's why we're seeing so many people testing the waters and seeing what's out there. And so in my work, I hear your career story, hear about all of your accomplishments, and get them down on paper. I do that in two ways. I work one-on-one with people, and then I also am part of a startup offering DIY support to help people to convey their stories in a way that makes them appealing and allows them to get those, jobs that they've always dreamed of.
Amazing. And I know you, along with a few other coaches as well, recently launched Job Search Journey, which I'm super excited about as well, to also be part of that journey as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that, Heather?
Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to. We'll be having more news next week, but Job Search Journey is a one-stop shop offering job seekers access to high-quality, budget-friendly tools to support job seekers literally from application to offer. So we're super excited.
Amazing. Tiffany.
Yes. Wow. I love that. And great job, Virginia. That's amazing. I would definitely say, too, that 2021 has still brought on a lot of self-reflection and still a degree of uncertainty. So where I have really loved focusing through my coaching efforts, especially towards young professionals, often in those earlier stages of their career, anywhere from year 1 to year 7, year 8, helping them take control back of their career success and really being back in the driver's seat in these moments of uncertainty and unpredictability on how they can still fast track their success and growth, and that they don't have to feel frustrated. They don't have to feel stuck or stagnant. And whether that's in their current organization, pivoting to a different organization or a different industry altogether, I just love helping them see the possibility that is still very much in front of them and allowing them to take that proactive control to get there.
What about you, Ricklin?
Yeah, my word for 2021 is intentional. And so I work with my clients as a career coach to help them be intentional about their career. I think what 2020 taught us is there's so much that's out of our control. So I encourage my clients to control what they can, especially when they're in pursuit of a fulfilling career. So I help my clients see their significance and articulate their awesomeness so they can land the job that they want and the salary that they desire. So that's what gets me jazzed up every day.
Amazing. That's so great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd say for me, 2021, I feel like last year for me, I've just been go, 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 go. And this year has really taught me it's okay to slow down and it's okay to take breaks. Like John, you know this because we've done a lot of walks together. And I really took the summer off to try to recoup, to enjoy time out with my family as well. That's what really 2021 has taught me there. So thank you for sharing this. And we've been getting some amazing response, a lot of birthday wishes. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. I was just saying, I just got this birthday surprise in the door. One of my friends sent it to me. I think it's a cheese board or something. I'm not sure. And got this huge birthday cookie cake from Kamara yesterday. So thank you so much for all the love there. So moving on, I want to talk about some other questions here. Let me see here. What do we have here? Okay, let's dive into our discussion now. Is why do you think millions of people have quit their jobs this year? What does this really mean to career changers or job seekers? If we can all build on this, that would be amazing. So why don't we start with you, Ricklin?
Yeah, I'll actually piggyback on what I said a few moments ago. I think what 2020 taught us is there's so much that we can't control. And I think 2020 helped us to feel empowered and that, you know what, I don't have to settle for, like Jennifer said, the toxic company. Also, it taught us that life is short. So if there are goals and dreams or career aspirations that we have, I think people feel encouraged that, you know what, now is the time. We don't have a lot of time, so I got to get serious about it now. So I think that's what's kind of spurred on this great resignation is people want to do work that they love. They want to work at organizations they enjoy, and we feel empowered to do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else anyone want to add on there? Is it Jordana, I see? Or Jennifer? Okay.
Yeah, I know, just to double down, one thing that I've been talking about is I think a lot of people, their BS tolerance has gone down to zero. So a lot of the things that they weren't totally happy with in their career, they know that there's other options. And all of a sudden there's all of this hiring that's going on. There's shortages in certain industries. The way that we work has changed, which has opened up a lot of doors because regionality is no longer as relevant. Or you realize that you want to move out of one of the mass markets and take a remote job. So the way that we work has shifted along with that tolerance level for what we want. And really what Ricklin said, like what we want out of our careers. And it's not just about, working as many hours and getting the fanciest job title and as much money as possible. We know that there's more to our lives than that and that our careers should support the life that we want.
Yeah, that's amazing. Jordana, I would love to hear your perspective as from a recruiter standpoint as well, what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure you guys have heard the term before, your EVP or your employer value proposition. And if you didn't have one before the pandemic and you didn't think about having one during the pandemic, you better have one now, because most candidates that are going through the interview process are looking for what that value proposition is. And as Ricklin and Jennifer both alluded to, there has to be a connection between, the candidate's values and what's meaningful to the candidate and the organization that they work for. This generation that's about 16 to 22 years old really excites me because they operate so differently than millennials or than Gen X does, in the sense that there's different things that are important to them. Experiences are important to them. They're not necessarily buying houses and getting married and having children. And so what that means for the workforce moving forward is explosive. And I'm so excited to see what that means.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. John, you want to add on as well?
Yeah. So I'm a sociologist by training, and so one of the things I look at is the data. And when I was looking, and I remember the Deloitte study in 2019 of millennials and Gen Zs actually does, they did have some findings saying that 50% of us are always looking at the next best opportunity, right? So our eyes are always peeled. I think what the data shows for every summer is that there's about a 15% to 20% turnover, like for companies, depending on sector and industry, of course, and level. But overall, people are constantly shifting. But with the uncertainty of the previous year, people weren't going to leave their jobs. And now things are finally loosening, and things are, the job market is actually going back to normal. Economy is recovering. And so people are all jumping ship at this time. And so what that also means is that, when someone leaves their job, then there's more openings for other people to pivot to other places. So that's why it's kind of like a positive feedback cycle where people, one person leaves and then a whole bunch of other people will go and fill in their places. And that's what's really happening.
Amazing. I love this. I'm so glad we're talking about this because it is happening. It's a reality. So I'm really glad we're talking about this. So let me see here. Who's next? I had it's Virginia.
So I love what John said. He brought the data. I'd love to speak to what I'm seeing with some of the older folks. You know, he referenced millennials or, you know, Gen Zers and millennials. I work with a lot of Gen Xers and boomers, and they're towards the ends of raising their kids. They've saved for college. They have stuck around in jobs to, you know, to take care of all those things. And now they're like, what the heck? I have nothing else to lose. Let me see what's out there. So it's exciting. It's a long time coming for a lot of these folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. So we have my other friend who is here. I want to bring Sono Bahal as well to come join us to welcome her. Oh my goodness. Hey, Sono.
Happy birthday. This is the best I could do living in Belgium.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Joyeux anniversaire.
Thank you so much for being here. Could you maybe quickly do a quick intro of who you serve, what's your area of expertise, and if you want to add your 2 cents what we're just talking about, I'd love to hear in terms of implications to job seekers with a Great Resignation.
I'll try and be very quick because the last time you had me on your live stream, I went on and on, way over the time limit. Firstly, hi to Diana's friends here. I'm a big fan of a lot of you. Jennifer, I've seen you on YouTube, so I feel like I'm seeing a celebrity right now. My name is Sonal Behel. I'm Indian by origin. I'm based in Belgium, former HR professional, and now I'm a career strategist, career coach, love what I do. And this is bringing back a lot of memories. A lot of us have lived through recessions of 1987, I was too young. 2001, 2009, and of course this one. So 2 things that are coming in my head right now when I was listening to you guys was, number one, we don't talk a lot about 2010, 2011. There were a lot of resignations back then. When the crisis happened, the financial crisis and the meltdown, people hang on, right, for dear life to all the jobs because we need them. The moment things start opening up, you're like, I could not stand that boss anyway. So it's like a great time to leave. And usually it's the best people. It's the best people because they're always in demand. And it's the same thing here. But with the thing here is a lot of us have realized you can't take life for granted because of stuff that has happened. Healthy people, I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys have seen it within your family and friend circle, of people having passed away. You know, not just COVID, but also the last few years. I don't want to depress you, Dana, it's your birthday, but you know, like cancer diagnosis is on the rise, and it's the people's age is getting younger and younger. So people are like, life's too short for this BS. So that's one. And when opportunities come up and digital, and you can do everything with your phone now. It's like you don't have to be physically present. And the second, which is more interesting, and it's got nothing to do with only this year, but I've seen some very interesting research. When we go through milestone birthdays, you know, 35, Lion Diana, it's your 40th. Let's say you were in corporate and you're unhappy. What happens is when we have milestone birthdays, or when we have high school or college reunions, apparently the data suggests that you're very much more likely to jump because you're talking to people and you're like, hey, what am I doing with my life? Yeah, it's also, it can result in a bit of depression, but it's also the time to reevaluate. And you're like, I found this friend and there's an opportunity and I'm going to jump. So that's my piece.
It's so true. I have to say, when a group of my friends turned 40 a couple of years ago, they all came to me for career support to talk about what's next in their life. So it's this milestone and thinking like, is this it? Or what do I really want to do? So thank you for sharing that. So I want to move on and talk about a little bit more about the job market now. What's your take on the current job market? You know, people are saying it's the job seekers market now. What are those trends, challenges, and opportunities? And Jordana, I would love to hear your take as well from a recruiter's perspective.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting. You know, we talk about it being a candidate's market, but I think it's very industry specific. When you look at some of the industries that have largely, seen mass resignations in terms of healthcare and hospitality and retail, compared to when you look at some of the SaaS tech and software companies who are on hiring sprees and taking advantage of some of that market, you can certainly see that there is opportunity for those individuals. But I look at another industry that I heavily recruit in, which is supply chain, transportation, and logistics. And oh my goodness, people needing to be able to move their goods right now is explosive. So you see a significant amount of startups. I have never seen so many people that are leaving the job market to start their own companies, which is so interesting. So it's not as though people are saying, I'm leaving this thing to go and work for someone else. They're saying, I'm leaving this thing to pursue what it was that I was passionate about. So I think in terms of current opportunities, I see opportunities in certain sectors, and I certainly see a lot of opportunity for you to pivot, as you very well know, Diana, from one industry to another industry or from one role to another role. But I certainly see a significant opportunity for you to start your business or to start a partnership. I think one of the very interesting things that I've noticed is 2-3 years ago, a lot of companies weren't willing to take a look at what we call transferable skills as much as they are now. And so that makes me so happy to hear that and see that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm curious to hear from the audience. Any of you looking to pivot? What are you looking to pivot to? Or if you have, what have you done? Let's hear from Ricklin here.
Yeah, one thing I've seen in terms of the job market is we have much more savvy job seekers. And I think that's because of all the experts such as here on the panel. What we also saw in 2020, like LinkedIn usage increased with many people being at home. And so there's a lot more access to information. So job seekers are really demanding better candidate experiences. They're understanding how to negotiate their worth more than they did before. So I feel like this has really forced employers and recruiters and hiring individuals to step their game up, because job seekers are taking ownership. And so they're much more savvy in the way they go about their job search.
I totally agree. With access to all the information we have now, it's so much easier to, figure out what we want and also speak up for that. John, what's your take?
Yeah, I think Jordana hit a great point on the transferable skills, and I would add on to that, saying that what's defined as a desirable skill has changed fundamentally because of remote work. I look a lot at personality, and one of the things that we know at work, the extroverts love their water cooler talk, love to socialize and all that stuff. But with work from home, what's essentially happened is that the introverts actually are getting to flourish a lot, because they're able to sit down and get their work done, and that's kind of what they do already, and no one's bothering them as long as they're not on these Zoom meetings. But fundamentally, the soft skills of communication or just good writing, not having convoluted messages on Teams or Zoom or on your emails. I mean, a lot of these skills have been redefined, and seeing how work is changing and evolving, the whole discussion about remote work or hybrid or back to the office, and are you switching states and the salary, and all these conversations that's happening right now. I think a lot's changing.
Mm. Yeah, I can go next too, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, John. And I'd even add as well, from a networking standpoint, like things have really evolved, and I've seen it, to your point, even from an introverted side, but honestly, even extroverted side, there's an extra level of effort that needs to happen now. But the great thing is it's almost level playing field for everyone. And, even when you're talking about with senior leaders of an organization, instead of being behind a big office cornered off somewhere, like we are now all behind a virtual screen. And I think that's really empowering and liberating for a lot of individuals to get that face time and take those steps to really network strategically, build those relationships in their active job search that can really complement and accelerate landing those amazing opportunities that they're very rightful and deserving of.
Yeah, amazing. And Virginia, you want to add something too?
Yeah, in terms of what I think is really important to highlight, in addition to all of the, our adaptability and flexibility and all the things that we've referenced before, what I am seeing as really relevant and people want to hear about is how you can support an organization, not just in good times, but in rough times. The last 2 years have thrown companies for a loop, and they want to see that you understand how to take care of your customers, whether they're internal or external, and have some data around that.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Okay, so I'm going to bring on 2 more guests on board, and we're going to have like the full house here. We're going to do a quick hello here. We're going to do a group picture afterwards. Let me just bring the rest of the guests on board. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Let me bring Jess Smith on here. Say hello, and let me see. Hi, Jess. How are you? Welcome, welcome.
Hi,
And I'm going to
everyone.
bring Kamara Toffolo as well to come say hello. I've never done this before. 10 people. Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. Welcome, welcome. We have all 10 of us together here today. Oh my gosh.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I have to take a moment to say thank you, acknowledge you all. Many of you I have never met in person. I've only had John, who's my neighbor, and Kamara. I've only had lunch like a couple years ago. Now she's in Ottawa, but all of you are all over the world. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here with me today and just saying yes and being who you are and supporting each other throughout the journey here. So thank you. I would love to take a group picture because that's something I reminded myself since I have all of you here with me today. So we can just quickly look at the camera. That would be awesome. So I have this as well. Just one more, just in case. Oops, I got to delete the private chat here so it's not in the screenshot. There you go. All right, one more. Smile. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So quickly, I'm going to have Jess to introduce herself first, and then we're going to go into this other next question is how to find career clarity. So perhaps, Jess, if you can start off and share with us what you're known for, who you serve, and how can people start finding career clarity? And then we'll move to Kamara afterwards.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Diana, happy early birthday. So great to be here with you. And I just wanted to acknowledge you because I feel like you're someone who, my impression of you is that you work off of inspiration. And I see you get inspired to do things like this, and then you just make it happen. So thank you for letting me be part of your world, and happy early birthday. So my name's Jess. I am a career clarity and job search strategist coach. I help people who are unhappy with their jobs find careers that they love. So when we think about career clarity, this is one of my favorite topics because I think it's so important to know where you're going before you try to get there. And I think that's a big mistake that job seekers make often, especially if you're unhappy with the work that you're doing. It's kind of just like, oh no, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. You go into that panic mode, or that some people are in pain, right? They're in pain with their current situation. So they really want to jump quickly into something else. They want to get out ASAP. But what can happen when you make that jump too quickly and you don't do it intentionally is that you end up right back where you started in a position that's maybe not the best fit for you. So I really think that clarity is super, super important. I see it from 2 different angles. So I think there's first an introspective part that gets to happen, and then second, an extrospective part. So I think the introspection part is really about getting to know who you are, what you're all about, what you like doing, what you're good at doing, taking the time to get to know yourself and creating somewhat of a vision for some of the things you want to incorporate into your future career is really important. And then there's the extrospection part where we bring in informational interviews. So gathering external information to see what externally is going to align with who you are internally as a person.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Kamara, I'm going to have you up next. And I know your area of expertise is resumes and LinkedIn. So if you could introduce a little bit about yourself and talk about some best advice for resume and LinkedIn. And we'll go back and forth the question to see who else you want to add on as well.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Kamara Toffolo. Happy birthday, Diana. It's so great to party virtually with you.
Thank you for your cookie cake, by the way. I love it.
You're welcome. Yeah, was it good?
It was good. They were having it for breakfast this morning.
Don't worry about that. I don't know if that's the best thing, but anyway. So as Diana mentioned, I'm a resume writer, LinkedIn consultant, and job search strategist who helps established professionals dare to do work differently and land great fitting gigs. And I'm also honored to be recognized as a LinkedIn top voice in 2020, which was a very nice surprise. So in terms of my best tips for resume writing, I'll really start with my big best tip. And that is we want to make sure we're avoiding writing our resume too early. And so what do I mean by that? If you're job searching or you want a new job, you want to jump into the job search, right? But not so fast. We need to make sure that we have really clearly identified our target job before we go ahead and write our resume, update our LinkedIn profile, prepare for interviews, because our target job informs everything and that is involved in our job search.
Yeah, that's so true there. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to go back next to the career clarity question, because that was something I want to go a little bit further here. So I think, is it Virginia, you want to go next, and then Dr. John here?
Okay. Oh, maybe John could go, because I was going to add some thoughts on
the resume piece. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Why don't you do that first? John. Why don't you go back? Why don't you go first, since we got you here?
Oh, well, I'm so glad that Kamara, that you talked about clarity, because if you don't have a target, no one's going to be able to look through your stuff and figure out what it is that you want to do. So if you want to be an astronaut, stick it on there. If you want to be a chef, say that you're a chef. But from there, then the challenge that I see some people struggle with is how to explain what you did. And what they do is they list, 15 bullets that say, this is what I did day in and day out. And then that makes for a sort of diluted resume, and it's too long. So in terms of trying to scale it back and figuring out how best to show that you know what you say you know, is think about, if you were to leave the job tomorrow, what have you been proudest of? And most people have 4 or 5 things that they can reflect on. Those are your bullets. And what you do is you say, this is, think about what you're proud of, and then have a statement that shows, that proves that you have something to be proud of. So that sort of thought process is what I work with people work through to help them articulate their accomplishments.
Yeah, I love that. I can't emphasize enough just to really be able to showcase your value, and not just what you did, but the value that you bring there. So, John.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add to Jess's point, and I love how she says introspection and extrospection are the keys to clarity. I'll add that it's also a very messy process. Like, you can have an ideal goal of what you want for yourself, and then the real world might or might not have it, and if it exists, how far are you from it, right? So the approach that I take for clarity is that it should be a framework approach, which means that we got to give ourselves time to introspect, to meander, to try things out, and just to it's like, have you seen that diagram where there's that arrow, like, people think success is like this, and then it's actually like all over the place. It's kind of like that, but you really want to shorten the timeline by having that goal in mind. And I would add to the idea of that the goal should be something that's an infinite game, right? A lot of times people think like, oh, the goal is I want to enter this line of work, but the question is, okay, what if that line of work changes, right? What if that becomes obsolete? What if there's so much disruption that it's not possible to transition into that job, right? So oftentimes I would suggest people to play the infinite game. It's a Simon Sinek idea. It's also it's actually an idea from theology and philosophy in the 1980s, and he borrowed it from there. So the whole idea is that you always should be pursuing a North Star that is fundamentally unattainable. So it's like if you use an example from athletics, right, from sports, you can play the game, or you can be the best player that you can be at that point of time in your life. And if you talk to the greats like Michael Jordan or whatever, he'll always say, like, I'm trying to be the best player. I'm not trying to beat other people. I'm just trying to be the best that I can be to fulfill my why, my North Star, my anchor, my infinite game. And so I think the question is for a lot of us, and I think COVID has really given us this opportunity to really wonder, like, what is my infinite game? What is my legacy? What am I leaving behind on Earth as my contribution after I'm done my X amount of years here?
Oh, so many deep questions I want to reflect on this weekend. Jennifer, you want to add on to this?
Yeah, just real quickly. One of the things, like, first of all, The Infinite Game is so amazing. Everyone should read that book. It should be required reading for everyone. But also to kind of elaborate on the process is I'm a huge believer in prototyping as well, because setting that North Star, you might think that it looks one way when in fact what you would actually love doing and be great doing is totally different. So if I look at my own career, I spent like from the time I was 6 until I was 24 thinking I was going to become a lawyer because I'm like big in the pursuit of like justice and equity. Then I worked in a law firm and realized, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a lawyer because I will be miserable for the rest of my life. And then I started prototyping different ways. And I think job hopping has such a bad rap when actually it can be really helpful. And it doesn't mean that you always have to pursue career change after career change after career change, but even just taking some, working on some projects to see if you're interested in an area. Like if you're in sales and you think that you're interested in marketing, start dabbling in different marketing projects that you can do even on your own time, whether it's social media marketing, digital marketing, start learning about advertising and figure out if it's something that you would actually like to pursue. So you don't have to make the full jump. Because I think that speaking to people, like we can spend as much time in our head and speaking to other people about their perspective and experience, but until we're actually in it, we don't really know if it's going to be the way for us. So the way, like if you could figure out ways to sample before making that full leap and that full investment in adjusting your career, but also not feeling stuck once you've done it either, because you can continue that process. We have long lives and long careers if all goes well. So I feel like we have so much pressure to get it right and get it right now, but like just approach it with a lot of curiosity and know that each step that you take is getting you a step closer to your own path.
Amazing. And I want to hear from the audience what's resonating. I feel like there's so much great juices right now. I usually like to summarize things, but I want to continue the flow here. And I love that Kamara's chiming in the chat room here. So Tiffany, I think you want to add a few things as well here.
Yes, sure. And I think it builds nicely on Jennifer's points too, because something that I really like advocating for when it comes to career clarity and those next steps is not putting as much pressure on like, what am I going to do with my life? Because that is a way to like just psych yourself out, but focus rather on what do I want to do next? And it helps reduce a lot of that intimidation and overwhelm factor, but making sure that each of those steps in those immediate next elements of your career path are feeling really in line, even with what Jess was saying, with that introspection and extrospection, and really bringing that all together in a way that will motivate you day in and day out. And that's also why I really love to focus more on the short to midterm, not just like longer term goals, because everything you do today directly implicates where you go tomorrow. So there's this level of consciousness and intention that really needs to come forward in that clarity that's going to help you feel very fulfilled at every step of the way.
Amazing. Jess, I'll let you wrap it on this question here, and we're going to move on to next on resumes and LinkedIn here.
Okay, cool. So the last thing I'll say about career clarity, to enhance everyone else's points too, to add on, I think there are 3 C's of what you need for career clarity. So I think that you need courage, number 1, to be able to step out there and say, hey, I want to do something different. I think you need curiosity. Get curious about what's out there, explore new things. And then the third one is commitment. So what John had said, it's messy, right? It's super messy. The process can wind all over the place. And so I think that commitment is really, really important to continue on and play the infinite game and continue to be committed to finding where you're going, even once you've found it, to continue that path. So that's my last piece. Thanks, Diana.
Love it. It's my style. The 3 C's: curiosity, courage, and commitment. Some of you type it in there. Amazing. Thank you. So let's move on to the next question here is how to create marketable resumes and LinkedIn profile. What are the most common mistakes? So Ricklin, I'm going to have you start here.
Sure. The most common mistake that I see is that people struggle with connecting the dots between work they have done and the work that they want to do. And so I take my clients through a process where we literally connect the dots. We go through specific job description, look at the bullet points on the job description and the bullet points on their resume. And I ask my clients to treat every bullet point like a question. They're essentially asking you, when have you done this? And so I encourage them to try to literally connect the dots between the bullet points on their resume and the bullet points on the job description to reflect exactly what the recruiter is looking for to the extent that they can. And to really think about relevant experience. It doesn't have to be apples to apples, Where have you demonstrated that skill doing something else that you can apply to the role that you are seeking? And just really having a laser focused, targeted approach to the resume is really, really key.
Amazing. Thank you. Sono, you're next. I think you had a point that you wanted to add on from the previous. No problem.
Thank you. I apologize. Diana, I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me. When you do these LinkedIn live streams, one of the best things is the learning. I don't care if one person or 100 people show up, because I'm learning, like I'm taking notes. And I've been going live like almost 90 weeks on LinkedIn. And there is a particular coach who sits in Finland. He's semi-retired and he is 66. He's read every career book ever since the 1970s. And he brings in these gems, and I feel like because of him, I'm smarter. And one of the things that he says, which I absolutely love, is when you've been on a little bit of a career break because of COVID or you took a step back, there's a lot of pressure, right? If our previous role was senior manager, then we're going to look for director. And if the role is not director, it's not right for me. Like we have this sort of attitude and we, roll our nose up against it. I love what he does, and he does these illustrations. And what he says is your next role. So going to John's point, it's long game, right? It's infinite. So your next role, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to ask yourself, is it the springboard on which I will jump? So the one after that is taking me closer to my dreams. And sometimes, and that's happened with me, it's so true, it means a little bit of a salary. I took a little bit of a, what do you call it? A jump, the opposite of a jump.
Pivot?
Pay cut?
Pay cut.
A little bit of a pay cut, or the position was a lateral move, right? And you're like, oh, what do people think? What do friends? So I just wanted to bring that point up because it's not just about the next move, but the one after that and the one after that.
I love what you said.
I feel like I'm on Clubhouse. This is Sonal and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, I love what you just said though, is that's something I coach my clients on too. It's not just this next move, but like, how is this next move going to help you with the next move as well? And something I always ask my clients is, are you moving closer to where you are, or are you moving further away? So when you're assessing an opportunity, is it an 8 or 9 or 10 that's moving you closer, or is it just like a 3 or 4 that's just gonna the pay the bills there, right? So thank you for adding on to that. So next we have Jennifer. You want to add something?
Yeah, so like going to the LinkedIn and resume, and I'm going to come at it from a marketing angle, because I think that each of us in our career, like you are the CEO of your own career. You provide services to a company. That is a product. So understanding what the company is purchasing and what matters to them, like why should they care? And that's really what you're communicating. And I think that so often, like a lot of job seekers think that resume and LinkedIn are the same thing when they're like so different. And I think the biggest thing that you want to think about is what role does each of those assets play in the conversation to help a company realize that you're the person that they need to extend an offer to, that like you are the right product for their problem. So resumes, I think so often like a lot of job seekers get scared about ATSs and optimization and stuff. You need to optimize in order to like pass when companies are using filters, because some are getting hundreds of applications or thousands of applications for a role. But really what you should be optimizing for is the human that is reading it. And the same thing on LinkedIn. So while you want to have a certain level of optimization, ultimately what you're trying to do is induce intrigue and make them really excited to talk to you, no matter what point of contact they're having before they actually have a conversation with you. And fully leveraging, especially LinkedIn, is so important because most people completely neglect it. But if you're commenting, if you're posting, you're leaving breadcrumbs of your awesomeness all over the place, which is going to help recruiters find you. It is going to help the hiring manager or your potential future colleagues realize like how awesome and aligned you are, and give them things to actually ask you about, and really showcase what you are bringing when you're being strategic about the conversations that you're having and how you are putting yourself forward on on that platform and in your resume.
Ooh, I love that. Think like a marketer. Amazing tip. Kamara, what else do you have to add on to this?
Yeah, Jen makes some great points. It's really when we're looking at a job posting, it's not about necessarily the job itself, but filling a business need, right? The employer needs someone to, as Jen was saying, provide a service to them, and you want to make it clear that you're the right person for that. So I just want to also expand on what Ricklin was mentioning in terms of the bullet points in a job posting and comparing and contrasting it against your resume. She made some great points, and really those job postings that are out there give you the clues and the cues that you need in order to formulate the right resume for that position. And that brings us back to why a target job is an absolute first step before you write your resume. But I just wanted to, because Jess had such a good acronym, I just want to hit the audience with my acronym for writing accomplishments, which is the 5 R's. And so when you are writing accomplishments, we want to make sure that we are reframing our work experience so that we are sharing details that are relevant to our target job, that relate to our target job, that reinforce skills required of us in our target job, and that resonates with the target employer, like kind of speaking their language. So those are the 5 R's that I just wanted to mention. And yeah, that's
I
it.
love it. The 5 R's. Someone type in those 5 R's, please. I'm gonna.
I will do it.
Amazing. That is so good. Who else I have here? Oh, I wanted Jordana. I would love to hear from your perspective, from the recruiter's perspective. You see a lot of resumes. I've seen a lot of resumes as well. But let me hear, what are some of the common mistakes that you see, or even on LinkedIn as well, that job seekers need to be aware of?
You know what, Diana, it's funny. I remember years ago, a recruiter said to me, if you keep switching jobs, you're going to be unemployable. And that evoked a series of different emotions in me towards this recruiter. And I see people that have had 6 months at a job or 3 months, and sometimes it's because they're new immigrants and, they're getting any job that they can to get that good old Canadian experience. And other times they've been in a workplace where it wasn't the right fit or it was toxic and they weren't willing to stay. And so as long as you can explain what those experiences have been, I think that's critically important. But as a recruiter, the hiring process can be quite fractured in some organizations. And the onus is on us and me as a recruiter to make sure that I'm being brave and I'm educating my employer or the client that I'm working with. Because if that client comes to me and says, Jordana, I want someone that has 3 years of SaaS software-based experience and network security at the same company, well, why is that important to you? Why does that person have to have been at that same company for 3 years? Why can't that person have been at 2 or 3 companies? Why does that make them less marketable to you? So I really think that, gone are the days of recruiters who were saying, here's my fee, I'll find you whatever you want. And here are the days of recruiters saying, why is that important to you? Why do you need a person that doesn't have an accent? Why does that person have to live in Toronto? We need to be brave.
Oh, mic drop. Oh my God. Thank you for that. Thank you. That was so good. Tiffany, I want to hear from you because you worked in corporate for a long time as well. What's your perspective from a hiring manager's perspective there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it ties a lot with the marketing piece, and I'm actually a marketing background too. So that part really hit home because it's ultimately, and this is not just getting the job, this also applies in the job, right? It's all about filling that need. And when you understand and really understand what they're looking for, it makes things so much simpler, right? Instead of coming with a slew of options, you know how to refine it down and make it very succinct as to how you deliver on what they're looking for. And I'd say just even from a resume standpoint, one of the biggest mistakes that I'll see is just talking more about what you've done and almost like reiterating the duty that you're being responsible for, but not actually taking it to that nth degree of, well, what's the actual impact and value that you create or created, right? Because that's going to show the employer and both job searching, but also in a job as to how you're going to continue to deliver that value in that organization. So that's often a missing gap that I think needs a little bit more refinement in how we're really selling ourselves from a marketing standpoint and also personal branding standpoint.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. That's so true. I totally agree with you. Even my days as a recruiter, I felt like 80 to 90% of the resumes I feel like are really responsibilities based and really missing the impact, the accomplishments and results there. So let's move on and talk about our next topic is around networking. I feel like this is something I always hear from clients or job seekers where they have this fear of networking, how to network effectively. And one of the common questions I always get is how to generate opportunities quickly, or what not to do. So a couple of questions here all in one, but feel free to answer them what resonates with you here. So who go first here? Who would like to go first here? We'll have, let me see. I'm going to have John here to come on next. I just put you on the spot.
So how to network effectively? I think one of the first things that we have to understand is, of course, you got to be intentional, right? The whole infinite game conversation when we were talking about career clarity, we have to be intentional. And I love how Tiffany said it's got to be short to midterm. And we have to have a long-term goal in mind, but it's got to be short to midterm. So how do we network effectively has to be aligned with that. Otherwise, you're just going to be networking, the possibilities are fundamentally endless if you don't have goal in mind. So it's got to be with the goal in mind. I generally recommend people to have an ideal career avatar, which is basically if you want to go into a FANG company in a certain role in a certain level, then set that target, right? And then go and network with people who are in that role to learn more about it. A lot of, particularly for career changers, the biggest challenge is typically signaling your insiders. So when you get to the interview, and the soft skills and just saying the language, speaking the lingo, and knowing the terms, knowing the acronyms, right? All those things signal that you're an insider. And unless you have these conversations with people during this transition period and actually acquire a language, it's fundamentally impossible to make that transition. So from a social and sociological and psychological perspective, it's very much about signaling that you belong. And the networking is so essential to that. And of course, you explore opportunities and all that, but I'm sure everyone else can cover that aspect.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Like, I feel like when you said signaling that you belong, and I feel like when we use the term networking, it can feel more cold. And I really look at it, relationship building, making friends. And when I think about how I met all of you, a lot of it was through LinkedIn, where we said hello. We weren't pitching or anything. We were just having a good conversation with each other. And it's really building that know, like, and trust factor there to continue that relationship, to move forward with the relationship there. And I think about, someone I recently met, another guest on my show earlier this year, Yuhan and Xian. We met on LinkedIn over a year ago, and they became, we stayed in touch through LinkedIn. They came to my events and then became guest speakers. And this summer, they invited me over to have dinner with them and to meet with the kids. And it's like that gradual relationship here that you build. All right. Anyone else want to add on to build on this about networking and relationship building? Jen? And then Sono? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one thing, like, I'm a shy introvert, which no one believes, but I promise you I really am. But I think, like, one thing when we think of networking, we always think about it like walking into this room of people that we don't know. And I love that John hit on precision, because knowing who you want to network with is going to make you more efficient when you're networking towards a goal. Like, it's fine if you just want to meet people, make friends, but when you're actually trying to achieve a job offer at a specific company, start meeting people at that specific company. But also, I think you need to take into consideration who you are. If you're the extrovert who just loves talking to everyone, like, go and talk to everyone. If you're the introvert, find people that you resonate with. My hack, especially as my career grew, was when I had to go to networking events, conferences, and things like that, it was terrifying to me to go into a happy hour. Like, I would just be like in the corner with my wine, looking at my phone, trying to find an excuse or the gall to go and talk to someone. But what I discovered was that when I was getting on the stage, when I was running sessions, when I became known, when I started pre-networking on back channels like Twitter, LinkedIn, and things like that, people started coming up to me and having conversations I knew I wanted to have already. So it gave a level of commonality, which was very, very helpful. So again, I think this is something that LinkedIn and posting on LinkedIn can be very helpful for you if you skew towards introversion. I think no matter how you network, though, you always have to be coming at a place of service. Don't go and start meeting people because you want something from them. Even if you do, because people feel that and it feels super gross. No one likes that. And I'm sure everyone in this panel has gotten, the pitch slap in their DMs before from someone who's like, hey, I want this from you. And it's like, what? I don't even know you. So like if you start, find ways to bring value to people, and then people are going to want to help you. They're going to want to get to know you, and you're going to build those relationships organically. And that has such a higher payoff.
I love that. Don't ask for favors without building the rapport first. Sona, what else do you have to add here?
Yeah, just to add to that, that's perfectly exactly what I was going to say. No one likes to hear this, Diana. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Nobody wants to hear that. They're like, yeah, but that's too much work, right? So the best time is when you don't need it. And I can't stand the word networking. I mean, I think it comes from IT, like Cisco. For me, I started my career in IT. So when I heard networking, I was like, I used to hear two things in HR, bandwidth and networking. And I just couldn't understand what they meant. So it was like, okay, let's change that to making friends and stay in touch. That's it. And not when you need them. It's exactly what Jennifer said, because Ricklin has a podcast and I have a podcast, and you learn so much from these guests. And my podcast is all about, how did you get hired? How did you get this job? How did you know these people? The smartest guests I have always done this. They've stayed in touch with the right people, and they never asked for favors. In fact, they did the opposite. What are you struggling with? Can I help you with something? Not unsolicited, like it doesn't feel like, hey, here's my ebook, 2,700 pages, it's for free. Like they didn't ask you for that, right? Because you also see this when, Jennifer, when I heard service, I hear some people take it like next level. And you're like, here's my free. I'm like, I never asked you. Anyway, so it's like, Happy Christmas, Diwali, Hanukkah, just like it's your birthday, just staying in touch very strategically. You're very smart, but at the same time, you never ask for something. They remember you.
Remember you, yeah.
Just plant those trees. They take a little time, but it's worth it.
Plant the trees. I love that. Thank you. Kamara.
Thanks, Diana. So I love all the points being made so far about networking. I have two things to add. So the first thing I'll add, just a general networking tip. I noticed that I personally have had the most success networking when I work to introduce other people. So someone in my network needs to know someone else in my network and making it happen. I feel like that's quite memorable. It definitely like karmically comes back, which is nice. So there's that. But from a job search perspective specifically, networking is important, but I don't want job seekers to lose sight also of the importance of applying to a job if it's posted online and they want that job. So sometimes job seekers get so wrapped up and concerned about networking that they actually forget to apply to a job. We need to do that first. And so particularly if we are engaging with recruiters and reaching out to recruiters and networking with them, we want to apply to their open position first, then reach out to them if we don't have a relationship already, then reach out to them and say, hey, I applied for your job. And this is why I'm a great fit. I just wanted to throw that out there because we don't want to miss that step because they're going to send you back there anyway.
Yeah, that's such a great point about that. Anyone else want to add on this? This is so good.
Yeah, Diane, if I can add really quickly, and in addition to all of the great things that everyone else has shared, I think job seekers, especially those in transition or looking to pivot, they underestimate the power of trade associations and going to events, actually. So I talk to a lot of people who are looking to pivot into human resources, yet they've never attended a webinar offered by SHRM. They've never gone to any virtual event with their local HR chapter. And so I think sometimes people believe you have to get in the field before you can be part of the field. But I encourage them to do the opposite. If you really want to transition to HR, IT, wherever that may be, immerse yourself in that, commit to it before you actually even land a job. And that's a great way to start the networking process. Don't wait until you get the job. Definitely immerse yourself in the field, in the industry, as soon as you decide this is what I want to do. Be committed to it.
Yeah. I like what you said. Like this really speaks about, I had a client one time who volunteered as part of their marketing association and was part of the committee there. And through that, they had a networking event where he met with an executive recruiter. And that led him to an opportunity where he interviewed for a series of interviews just because he volunteered for this event there. So really great point that you made. Another thing that I've seen that people have done well is like, I want to add on to Kamar's point, like making referrals. Like that's something I personally love doing, like for my own clients as well, like being a great advocate for someone. And this takes time, where if you know someone or an opportunity, be a great advocate. So reconnecting with people that you know, where you can share with them a bit more specifically of what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, so that they can think of someone or opportunity for them to refer you to there, to help essentially leveraging your second level network to meet other people there. Anyone else want to add to this?
I had a quick point, Diana, if there's time, just to add on to compliment everyone else. I'd say mindset is really important with networking, and just specifically the mindset that holds so many people back of assuming that people won't have time for you, or assuming that they're too busy, or just assuming that it's not going to lead to anything. Like, you got to get out of your own head with that kind of stuff, because that's going to get you out of the race before it's even begun. So if anyone that's tuning in has felt that at one point, and I find this is particularly important amongst reaching out to more like senior members of an organization versus more junior, but especially for people who are more junior in their career, just to really show. And again, it goes back to Jen's point about also, serving and not just reaching out to ask something, but really trying to build those genuine connections. If you're doing it in that way, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And especially in this virtual world right now, like that is the way that you have to do it. There's not as many physical events anymore. So it goes back to that level playing field and just making sure that that mindset is very much working in your favor.
I love that. Thank you for adding that, because if you have a mindset where I don't want to meet anyone, it's really hard for you to meet anyone there. So thank you for that. So let's move on to the next question here, is how to best prepare for an interview, or how to minimize those interview nerves. Sometimes I hear people say that, I freeze up when I'm in a part of an interview. Jordana, what's your take on this, also from a recruiter standpoint?
It's interesting, right? It's like testing. Some of us were really good at testing in school, and then others just absolutely not. Two pieces of advice that I can give here. First and foremost, there is so much wonderful free content on the web right now. When it comes to, being able to understand questions that are going to be asked of you, you can go to Glassdoor and you can take a look at the company that you're interviewing at if they have a profile. You can find out salary information, and you can find out interview questions. That would be tip number one. Tip number two, if you're able to, this tip has actually saved me in my career, is reach out to someone who recently got hired by that company on LinkedIn. Ask them if they'd be willing to speak with you. Also, a tip unrelated to this would be reach out to someone who recently left that might have been in a similar role and see what their experience is like, to know if you want to work there. I would also say one of the pieces of feedback that I get most often from a company when they decline to move forward in the process with someone, it might be a simple one, but they say they knew nothing about our company. They didn't bother to research at all about who we are and what we do and what our value is. So they had either a stock question or no questions to ask. How engaged are they actually with what we are going to do? And it's amazing how often I hear that. And I will prep my candidates, and I will send them different pieces of content and links and say, hey guys, spend 10 minutes to read this before you go into your interview process. And it never fails. When they haven't done that is where I hear that feedback. So please do your research wherever you want to work. This is your life, 40 plus hours of work a week. So you want to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, such great advice. That preparation can make a huge difference. Tiffany, you want to add your thoughts as well?
Yeah, sure. I love what was just shared, and even in line with the preparation piece. From a communication standpoint, communication holds a big weight in interviews, right? You could have all the qualifications, but if you're not articulating it properly, if you're not doing yourself a service or justice in that interview setting, it could really backfire. So, it's a very simple tip, but one that I love recommending to my clients also is practicing answers out loud, and not just like rehearsing them in your head, like actually get yourself a bit of a run through. It's not about memorizing answers, but just having some top level thoughts and seeing how it sounds. And sort of in conjunction with that is making sure that you are very much owning your accomplishments. This is a trap I used to fall in all the time, which was not owning it enough and defaulting more to we or the team. But this is your place to shine and showcase what you've brought to the table and how you can bring that value to this organization. So it's not conceited, it's not cocky, it's not egotistical. This is your moment to really showcase head on what you're able to do for that organization in that position. So make sure that that's really coming through in an interview setting, and practicing on that communication piece is going to be a big part of it.
Oh, amazing advice here. One thing I always talk about as well is that practice piece. Like, there's a difference between what you want to say versus how you say it. So by first structuring that content of what you want to say and actually practicing of how you show up on camera, your energy, your body language, your tone of voice, your facial expressions, all add up to that impression that you're giving to the employer. So there's that huge difference. And I find that when my clients actually take time to practice and record themselves and watch it, huge difference and game changer for them there. Sona, you want to add on to this as well?
Yeah, just exactly to what you said, Diana. It's funny because most people talk about how nervous they get and they share that with coaches or on LinkedIn. One thing people don't talk about is overconfidence. I'm just going to wing it. Like, I know this stuff really well and I'm just going to go in there. So Jordana can probably attest to it. You can tell if they have done their research. There's only so much in terms of BS before you get caught. So the whole, I've had interview coaches and communication coaches who say the most awkward thing is to record yourself on camera or do it in front of a mirror. But you see, like, oh my God, did I actually say that? Did I constantly keep touching my eyebrow, etc., etc.? It's very distracting, right? So my thing is, for example, I blink a lot. So people think I'm nervous, but you got to know what is your baseline behavior. Like, when I'm excited and I'm normal, I blink a lot. So that's my baseline behavior. Even when you know that, you're a lot more confident versus poking holes because no one likes to look at themselves on camera or in the mirror. The other quick thing I'm going to say is this amazing career coach that you guys probably know. His name is Niatu Bensi Enchel. He's based in New York. And he said something on my LinkedIn Live, which I loved. He said, there is no I in team. Correct. But he said, there is a me in resume. So this is the time when it comes to interviews, stop being modest. And I think, Tiffany, you said this, stop saying we a lot and say more me in a proud way. And you're not hijacking other people's accomplishments. But if there is a time to be humble, that's fine. This is not one of those times.
Oh, such great advice. And I see this especially at the executive level, right? When they have teams, it's about we, and it's really, you need to balance between the we versus I. And someone said to me one time the difference between what did I do versus what did I influence. Being able to balance that in an interview is really important at that senior level there. So great advice. I want to answer a question from the audience here. And I think this was what you were talking about, Tiffany, is the questions around mindset. How to change your mindset when your current job has tainted your view of your career choice. This actually is a great segue next about being in a toxic job. So Jennifer, do you want to take this next here?
Oh, deep sigh. Okay, how long do we have? We have like a few hours. I could really go on this. So this is especially when you've had a negative work experience to a toxic work experience. There's a broad spectrum here. But when you're coming out of a job that has not gone well, has left you stressed with a lack of confidence, lack of trust, lack of self-trust, lack of security, this can be really hard because now you're being inserted into a job search where you're supposed to be bragging about yourself. Your confidence is so important. You're supposed to be selling yourself. And maybe the perspective that you've been given and the perspective that you've internalized is that you're not that good, that, you make mistakes. Like, there's all of these like terrible beliefs that are formed in the course of a toxic job, especially for people that have been in one for a while. So I think one thing that you have to do, just as a starter kit, is to depersonalize the experience of the job and how people treated you from who you are and what you deserve and what you're worth. This is really, really crucial because I think that you need to keep in mind, at least consciously, even if you don't believe it right away, but the way that someone treats you often has nothing to do with you. Often it's just the person projecting their own stuff all over you. So if you have a boss who is really insecure, they're going to be micromanaging, they're going to be critiquing, they're not going to be effectively communicating with you. There's all of these things that happen. Is it a you problem that your boss doesn't know what they're doing? No, it's not. It's a them problem that they've made into a you problem, and they've sold it really hard so that you start to believe it. So that's ground zero, is that you need to depersonalize what has happened to you from who you are and what you can be going forward. Then I think it's so important to ground yourself in your awesomeness, to start rebuilding your confidence in yourself. So I talk about UIQ. You can say unique selling value, unique marketing value, or marketing value proposition. There's all sorts of words that we can use to describe it. But going back to what we were talking about earlier, especially with career clarity, is like, what do I really have to offer? What am I exceptional at? And what am I really interested and excited to do that I could talk about all day long, that I know I can go and I can have a great impact? The other thing that I know a lot of people go into their job search hesitating, especially post-toxic job, is they're afraid they're going to walk into a new one. And this is where I think that awareness in yourself is really important, but then also doing the due diligence that we were talking about in terms of interview prep. Know that when you're interviewing, it is a two-way street. You're interviewing them just as much. And I don't see enough job seekers doing due diligence and reference checking their employers and their bosses, scraping through Glassdoor and really figuring out, is this a job that I want versus is this a job I can take? And that's a really important distinction to make sure that you're not falling back into another negative or toxic work environment.
Amazing. I can feel your passion on this topic, Jennifer. Virginia, what would you like to add on to this?
Oh gosh, such great points. To me, one of the best ways to get intel aside from the Glassdoor scraping is, and someone referenced it earlier in relation to another question, is to ask people that recently left. You're probably going to get a lot of angry people, a lot of upset people, but usually if 3 or 5 people say the same thing, you're onto something, and that will help you avoid jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire, or the other way around. But one thing that I think is so important for us to be prepared for in an interview is someone's going to ask, why'd you leave? And you run the risk that all of your emotions are going to show on your face if you don't practice that response. So use all the free tools out there, practice how you're going to answer that, and get it to a point where you are sort of devoid of the pain and the emotion in it. And then use your intel to talk about why you're so excited about this opportunity in this company. That'll show that you're interested. It'll help to get you away from a topic that brought you a lot of pain.
Such great insight here. Tiffany, I would love to hear your thoughts as well in terms of coping with a toxic job. And I mean, you've been you were at the same company for 10 years as well, and you've probably seen a lot. We'd love to hear your thoughts, what you've seen or advice that you have for those who've been at the same company for quite some time there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And there's definitely some key cues you're going to want to pick up on. I always like to recommend really trying to get to the source of that toxicity. And that's going to help with the next steps, right? Because maybe it's a toxic boss, maybe it's toxic coworkers, or maybe it's a toxic culture, or maybe it's all three, which is obviously worst case scenario. But all that said, there's certain things that can be done depending what the source is. For instance, toxic coworkers. Don't get me wrong, I don't think anyone likes working with toxic coworkers, but sometimes they're inevitable. And it's not necessarily a reflection of the company, but it could just be a little like what Jen was saying, like their insecurities being projected onto others, or they don't have quite a strong level of professional maturity yet. So there are ways sometimes that we can get around these things if the organization is ultimately one that you still love and want to grow with. Toxic boss is a little bit more challenging if there aren't as many opportunities to possibly pivot to other teams internally. But again, it kind of goes back to, is this an organization that I would like to continue to grow with? And can I see myself getting past this current situation with certain action steps that I can put into place? If it's really in the culture, maybe led from management or leadership, and they're actually enabling this type of behavior, that's a huge red flag, because that's going to be very difficult to change. And if it's especially compromising your well-being, this is a big sign that it's going to take a toll. Maybe it's not taken the full toll as of yet, but it's coming. And your well-being is the most important thing in your career. You know, we are spending a lot of energy in working, and you deserve to be at your absolute best. And if that well-being is being compromised, you won't actually be able to show up as your best self at work. And it goes back to that previous question that it's likely going to taint your mindset for future opportunities. So you want to almost try to see these signs before it gets to that point of no return, where you can then take that control back into your hands and find something that's a lot better of a fit for you and your personal values.
Oh, great insight. I love this. This is so good. And I feel like I'm glad we're talking about this, because I definitely have been seeing, I feel like this past year, and even looking at why people are quitting, you know, a lot of times they're either in a toxic job or they're just tired. And Jordana, I want to hear your perspective from a recruiter standpoint is, how honest should a job seeker be of why they are leaving when they answer that question, like, why are you leaving the job? Is it okay for them to answer because of a toxic boss or an environment, or should they really spin it to a more positive spin there?
I'm not a big fan of spin. And first and foremost, what I should say is I get calls from candidates quite often who are at a job and telling me it's a toxic workplace and divulging very honest information as to what's going on. So shout out for just a second to EAP and benefits when we're talking about mental health, that sometimes if your company provides you with the opportunity to see a registered social worker or to see a psychologist or a psychotherapist or speak to an EAP provider, I know there's some programs that give you up to 5 to 6 times at no charge. That should be something that you tap into, because I certainly am not a therapist. I can give you advice and guidance, but if you need that assistance sometimes is there for you. The second piece that I always advise people is this a temporary situation or is it systemic? Meaning, you know, are you working on a project right now with people that you don't like and so you're not enjoying it? Or are you working under someone who is actively discriminating against you? Is it a legal issue? Because that, again, I would advise you to seek legal advice versus if it's a workplace toxicity issue. But for me, you know, when someone is very honest with me in a recruiter relationship and saying, I left this because I could no longer work for this person, I'm always telling them to think about what the feelings were and the emotions were of what they had under that person versus exactly, you know, what it was that they were going through. I'll give you an example. I recently had coached an individual who was going through the interview process and told me that he left an organization because the HR manager was singling him out, and he felt that that person was singling him out. So I said, if you go into the interview process with an HR manager and you tell them that the reason why you left your previous organization is because this HR manager was singling you out, they're going to look at that as you being negative and potentially not knowing the other person's story, because there's always 2 sides to every story. So I said, I encourage you to think about being honest, still being truthful. I don't want you to sugarcoat it, but I want you to come up with something that would be a little bit more generic in that situation, in terms of, you know, I realized upon leaving this workplace situation that there were some things that weren't aligned, either my health or my safety or my happiness or the money or whatever that challenge was, versus I didn't like this person because we were always arguing. So that's a difficult one. That's one of the most difficult questions that I get asked, because quite honestly, Diana, I think if we were all completely 100% honest in the interview process, they'd make for some very interesting interviews.
That is so true. So true. So no, you want to add that? Yeah.
You really need to vent before going to these interviews. And Jordana, you see the experiences and what Virginia said. You know, your face doesn't lie, because you know, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I was going to say something and I forgot. It's going to come back to me. Sorry, Diana.
That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone want to add? Yeah. I think I can add. I'll add something to this. I love what you said about at the end of the day, people can see your facial expressions, right? Like whether you're telling the truth or not. And this is why when I work with clients, I rather than process those emotions with me, like, you know, tell me the truth of why you're feeling this way. Like cry if you need to, swear if you need to, whatever that is. Sometimes I tell my clients, if it's in a really bad situation, write a letter to this person, but burn it afterwards so they can at least process how they're feeling. And just burn it. You don't have to actually send it, but actually just do that processing of that mindset or the emotions. It helps healing as well too before you go into this new interview, this new interview of why you want this job there. Because the last thing I think as an interview they want to hear is all the details of the story, right? Of everything. They don't want to hear all of that. Yep. You want to add that?
Exactly. The devil is in the details. And that also applies to exit interviews. I've had, oh my God, like bad experiences. And as HR as well, right? Because the person, the manager comes back and I want to know what this person said. Now, what's the point of the exit interview if I don't share that? And there is no anonymity, right? You have 5 people in your team and one said it. So how do you know they're not going to go and try and attack and find a way to badmouth you in your new place? So I know that, I don't know, I feel like this is my experience. The less that you share, you still share, you can be honest, but when you get into specifics, and if you haven't vented with a friend before, or you haven't spent a few weeks with Nutella or Ben and Jerry, our close friends, then it's going to be out. And once it's out, you can't take it back.
Yeah, for sure. Jen, you want to add on to this?
Yeah, well, and one thing that I've seen is people restage toxic environments for themselves because they're going into their next job and complaining and like a lot of the behaviors and habits. And again, I can spend hours talking about this, but Diana, I wanted to echo a point that you made because I think this is really important, is that there's so many emotions that happen to us when we're in a toxic work environment or even just a like very negative work environment, because I know not everyone's comfortable with that term. And so often it's being written off by people. So first of all, when you're in a toxic work environment, you're probably dealing with a healthy dose of gaslighting, both like the toxic person gaslighting you, but then you're kind of like gaslighting yourself as well in the process. And I know often I've met so many toxic workplace escapees that are turning to friends and family looking to vent and things like that. And we need to somewhat manage that too, because that can really start to impact those relationships. But that isn't to say that we just get over it, brush it off, forget about it, any of that stuff. And that's something that so many people are taught, and it undermines and invalidates their experience. You have to feel those feelings. If you don't feel your way through those feelings, they're staying with you, and pushing them down and repressing them is only going to make them worse. It is going to not only show up emotionally and psychologically, it's going to show up physically as well. I'm a huge believer in this. So, if it's whether it's with a trusted friend or a family member who understands and validates the experience that you have, if it's with a therapist, if it's with a coach, if it's writing in your journal, if it's meditating, if it's rage writing, my favorite thing to do, find a way to get it out, because the faster that it's like lancing a boil. Once it's out, right? So you want to do that. You want to expedite that as much as possible. Of course, it still takes time. There's no actual shortcuts through it, but the only way through it is through it. And it is important in order for you to close that chapter to move on to that next job and be successful in that next role.
Oh, I love this. I feel like we need a private session for people to just vent out how they're really feeling, right? We need one of those kind of sessions, I feel. And, one of the other question here is around should I quit my job? Considering right now so many people have quit, does it make sense quitting if you're really feeling not happy? Tiffany, I would love to hear from you on this question.
Oh, yeah. I know that's a difficult question for a lot of people to answer. And there's a lot of thoughts that can run through your mind when you're contemplating it, right? Maybe it's if I just stick it out longer, maybe things will get better. Or, I really need the paycheck. I can't afford to step away from this. Or, is it actually good to leave my job if I don't have something else lined up? So many different thoughts. But at the end of the day, and it kind of echoes my previous point and a lot of what others have shared too, if your well-being is taking a huge hit, that is not sustainable. And you could tell yourself as many things as you want to try to convince yourself that it's worth staying, but you will not show up as your best self at work, but probably more importantly in your personal life. And this could come through in affecting relationships, friendships, time you're taking for yourself or not taking for yourself. So that would be the biggest sign. If this is something that your well-being has been taking a major hit for a while now, and these answers and questions that you're trying to tell yourself are just not getting you anywhere, it's likely a sign to step away. That said, and it goes a little to what I was saying before, there's often things that can be done internally to course correct. And sometimes just navigating conflict is a very important skill to learn to cope with and deal with, because even if you are a very conflict averse person, you can very much find yourself in these situations in future settings. So, that's not necessarily the thing that's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, but the well-being is very much that sign of if you're just feeling like you're not whole, that you're not yourself anymore, that you've changed. And if even family members and friends are seeing a change in you, which has happened a lot with my former clients before they started working with me, where their immediate circle was seeing that they have changed who they are because of their work environment, that's a huge sign that it's time to step away.
That's such great insights. I love that. Anyone else want to add on to this? Should I quit? What your perspective is? It's such a tough question. I feel like it's so personal of what makes sense for you. We got to look at many factors and variables as well. Like I always tell my clients that, I totally agree. Like if it's really impacting your mental health, you got to do something about it. But for some people, they also have the financial obligations as well. I've been talking to some people like recently where they tell me they've been unhappy for like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I met someone even 20 years been the same job and they have been unhappy. And I'm like, if you've been unhappy for that long, you got to do something about it. Right? You have to do something. If you've been miserable for that long, you can't just in cruise control, being autopilot. You got to do something. It's your life. And this is why it's so important, like to take control of your life there. Anything you want to add to that, Sono?
No, I think that you have to take responsibility and the buck stops with you. But one thing I wanted to say is, because there's a lot of, we talk a lot about toxic and negative things and with other people. Why is it that everyone's talking about it? But I think that when you go through something life-changing, like a big career change or something like that, I think it's a great time to look in the mirror. Because we may not know this. The boss who is the source of toxicity maybe has unknowingly, or we don't know, unknowingly, we've also changed and we've become a little toxic ourselves. That is very uncomfortable and we don't want to talk about that. But why is it that it's always outside and within? Checking that out as well, because I know that after a while, when I was in that situation, I just became a very difficult person to be with at home, and I wasn't the best mom. So I take full responsibility for that because I can't keep blaming the boss.
Yeah, such great advice. Thank you so much, Sono. I know you need to get going. Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate you there, and I will catch up with you soon.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. I have Tiffany and Jennifer here still. Amazing. Both of you were my first guests back in January. I don't know if you guys remember this. And then we got Jordana here still as well, who's new to my show. But just to some background, Jordana and I met many years ago when I was actually recruiting for her in sales. That's how we met. And we recently reconnected again. So I want to wrap up. Let me see, just a couple more minutes here. The question around, what's your final advice, encouraging advice on managing your career in job search? What can one start doing now? Jordana, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I would say, it might sound like a cliche term, but, you need to take ownership over your career and over your job search. Oftentimes I will take calls from candidates who say, I'm stuck in my job and I want to find something else. What do you have for me? And, there's an onslaught of questions that I ask because I don't know you and your skill set and what makes you happy and what makes you challenged and the reasons why you go to work. And so you need to do some self-reflection and figure out, what do I love about what I'm currently doing? What don't I love about what I'm currently doing? So that before you start to embark on what the next thing is going to be and you're not getting into the same situation, you've at least done that work. And I know, again, it sounds cliche, but a piece of paper with your pros and cons just starts to get the juices flowing about, well, I thought I kind of like that and maybe I don't. Someone might have mentioned it earlier in this meeting, but sometimes the thing that you're really good at isn't necessarily the thing that you love. And so it does take a little bit of work. And to relate that to a sales experience, I used to have reps that I would manage who would say, oh, Jordana, I hate prospecting. I hate building rapport. I hate business development. But that was what they were truly, truly good at. And so it takes a really great coach to work with you to be able to try to kind of pull that out of you if you're not able to do that yourself. And so I think, when you're managing your job search, you need to be proactive. It is no longer status quo for you to just apply to a job and then say, oh, great, I'm going to wait for them to call me. They're not going to call you. So you need to be proactive. You need to network. You need to find out who's the hiring manager, who's the HR team, who are the talent acquisition teams, who are the recruiters, and reach out to them. And I will tell you, I may be one of the few recruiters who will respond to any candidate who sends me a DM. And I truly believe that that is because I am trying to build a network of people who, potentially could be in employment situations, candidates who I might be able to refer to someone else. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. Show that courage. And I think, if you connect with a recruiter, rather than just sending your resume and saying, here's my resume, do you have any jobs for me? At least show that you've had the intention to look at their website, to look at their jobs, and maybe say, I didn't notice that you had anything that fits my skill set, but I also know there's a huge hidden job market, and maybe you might be working on something that I don't know about. Can we talk? Can we have a conversation? And I will be happy to spend 15 to 20 minutes with you to go over your resume. So those are my tips.
Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer. I love this.
So for me, it comes down to two things. And I think some people do these two things phenomenally. So I think some people do one of these and some people do neither of these things. So I think, first of all, you have to fundamentally answer the question for yourself. What is success for me? It's an individual answer. Not everyone wants to be a CEO. Not everyone wants to climb the career ladder. Not everyone wants to be in corporate America. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone wants to have a side hustle. And I feel like so often we're bombarded by the socially constructed definition of success that we feel like we need to live. And I've worked with way too many people who have gotten to those levels of success only to look around and realize that they were absolutely miserable. I might be one of them. So starting and the earlier that you do this in your career, it's never too late to do it. But say fundamentally, what is success for me? And not necessarily just what does your professional life look like, but how does that tie into your life? Because we're not living to work. Hopefully we're working to live. And I hope that that's something that, especially over the last year and a half, more and more of us have realized. And then the other thing, and this was really a lesson for me that I will selfishly share for you. I already mentioned I am a shy introvert. If I never had to interact with another human being, that would probably be pretty okay with me. Quarantine was my thrive mode. Really it was. I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to cancel plans and pretend that I was busy. It was great. But success is not solitary. So anyone who does achieve success in whatever variety that it looks like does so with a success squad. It's their friends, their families, their mentors, their sponsors, their coaches. There's so many people that are going to factor into success. And I also think that kind of drawing from that, we always I think so often there's pressure that these are especially with mentors and coaches and things like that, there's this pressure that you have to know them in real life and you have to be meeting with them and you have to be paying for services and things like that. And if you have that and you have access to those resources, that's great. But if you're not there, if you don't know a mentor personally, if you can't afford to work with the expensive career coach of your dreams, chances are they're putting out some content for free. So you can have mentorship and you can have coaching from afar as well. You could read books, watch videos, hang out on Diana's lives. There's so many different ways that we can get what we need from our career. So don't necessarily feel like your success squad has to all be people that you individually know, but find people to get into your feed with intention that are going to help inspire you, motivate you, and lift you up, because career success isn't easy no matter what you're striving for. Sometimes it's really, really hard. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, so motivational. Tiffany.
I'm going to shed some tears. I'm feeling emotional with this shit. Oh my gosh. And great points, Jordana. Yeah, I'll just round things off maybe from even being in a job, right? And especially what that growth journey can look like. And I love Jen's point that, because success is so individualized. comparing to others, using others as a benchmark is not the way to go. You need to use yourself as your benchmark. You need to create and define your own success, what that is for you, and monitor your own progress, right? So long as you are moving towards your goals that we talked about earlier on the session, and you are moving forward versus where you were last week, last month, last year, like that is a huge achievement and something to be celebrated first and foremost. The other thing I will say in kind of really that growth path within an organization is never assume things, right? Don't just expect things to happen. Don't just think things are going to fall into place. There's going to be some intentional effort that's required there. And probably one of the best things that you can do to really help with that is seek out feedback. Feedback is amazing. And there's such a misconception around feedback. And I see it a lot of the time, even with my clients, where they're so hesitant to ask for feedback because they're sometimes scared of what they might hear. But my big advice on this one is, if you're not asking for that feedback, that person, whether it's your boss, a senior manager, a different leader, an HR manager, they're probably still thinking it and they're just not telling you. So it's much better to seek out that feedback so you can actually action it and get closer to your goals, whatever those goals are that are very distinct to you.
Amazing. I love this. And I'm going to add my 2 cents to this. I want to wrap on a high note here. And I want to say, for those who are going through a tough time right now, or if you're going through some really challenging time, I want to let you know that you matter. Don't give up so easily. Know that you matter. There are people who care about you, who love you as well. Like, really believe in yourself, believe in your own value. And if you're not sure what it is, go talk to people who adore you, who love you as well. Like, find that success out there. I find, even for me, like, being the positive person, a lot of people tell me I was very positive, very energetic. This year, I found it's been a lot of emotional roller coaster for me as well, in terms of having my lows. And I always have to go back to finding those joy, finding gratitude, journaling as well, what I'm grateful for. Even like today, like, honestly, I didn't even think that I would be doing this, but I was thinking about what would give me joy. And originally I was thinking of doing a private webinar. I was like, that doesn't jazz me up. And I literally woke up the next morning, messaged all my friends. I'm like, hey, do you want to come do a live with me? And that lit me up. And so find things that's going to get you excited, even though when you think it's challenging or it's an end of the world, do things that's going to give you joy, that's going to give you that spark as well. And guarantee you it's going to help you with how you show up in life, in your job search, in the people that you talk to there. So on that note, I just want to say I'm so grateful for all of you. I know a lot of guests have left, and I want to thank all of you for coming as well. I really, I'm getting emotional, but I'm just so grateful this past year, where I met so many amazing people now, not just in my own city, but all over the world. And I really cherish that. So thank you so much for all of you being here today.
Oh, thank you, Diana. Thank you for putting this on. I think it's great to meet everybody. I think, Diana, I hope that this year is your absolute best year. And thank you for everything that you do for everyone that you serve on the LinkedIn community and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Diana. Yes, happy early birthday. We hope you have a wonderful weekend where you are just spoiled with love, and all the best to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tiffany, Jordana, and Jennifer. And thank everyone as well who was live. I saw all of your comments. I will be going through them as well. Thank you for all the cheers and love and the good vibes there. Thank you so much there. Amazing. All right, you guys all take care. Have a wonderful weekend. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.